I will go ahead and open tonight's meeting. I will thank you all for joining us. For the record, it is Tuesday, October 25th. It's a few minutes after 6. We'll start with roll call attendance. Mr. Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councilmember Kavanagh.
Here.
Councilmember Milam.
Here.
Councilmember Little Roberts.
Here.
Councilmember Byrd.
Here.
Mayor DeVeard.
Here.
And Councilmembers Borton and Palmer are absent.
Thank you. Item number 2 is a Pledge of Allegiance. Tonight will be led by one of our Boy Scouts, Caden. Caden, if you'll come up front. And Caden will be leading us in the pledge. If you will all rise and join us in the pledge to our flag.
I
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
2.
Good job.
Thank you very much, Caden, for leading us. Item number 3 is our community invocation. Tonight will be led by Pastor Michael Pearson. He is with Meridian Seventh-day Adventist Church, a great community partner of ours located off of Black Cat. Thank you for joining us. If you all join us in the invocation or take this as an opportunity for a moment of reflection.
Thank you. Father in heaven, this evening we want to thank you for Mayor Tammy DeVeert and the City Council members here and absent, support staff, and all those present for the amazing value that each one brings to this community. And Father, in that as a Meridian community, we recognize your name and your authority. We ask for your guidance this evening that all matters discussed and decided on will be to the vindication of your character. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you. Item number 4 is adoption of the agenda.
Madam Mayor,
Mr. Byrd.
item 5M on the consent agenda has been asked to be removed, and it will be known as 6M. And item 7B, the applicant is not available for tonight but would like us to go forward if we don't feel we need him to speak to us. And in that same deal, item C, the applicant is requesting to withdraw the item. And with that, I move we approve the amended agenda.
A motion is second to approve the agenda as read. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All ayes, motion carried. Item 5 is our consent agenda.
Madam Mayor.
Mr. Byrd.
On the consent agenda, as stated earlier, 5M will be moved to 6M. And with that, I move we approve the amended consent agenda and for the mayor to sign and the clerk to attest.
Second.
A motion is second to approve the consent agenda as stated. Any discussion from council? Mr. Clerk, will you call roll?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councilmember Kavanagh.
Aye.
Councilmember Milam. Councilmember Little Roberts.
Aye.
Councilmember Byrd.
Aye.
All ayes. Item 6M was moved from the consent agenda, and I know that council wanted some additional information, and Dave Teedy is here to address council.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the council. Happy to be here again before you. There were some questions about this award for the Council Chambers Technology Refresh, but I wanted to start a little bit at the beginning and discuss the RFP briefly. So as mentioned before, we sought approval for spending monies earlier this year We asked for spending authority for the full $428,000, but we had a projected cost of $300,000 for this project. That's where we left it off at. You should have before you a document that gives the scoring criteria that was used. It's a little bit brief, but it covers the 4 responders that responded to this proposal and the scoring that was given to them based off of the 8 members of our project team that helped score the RFP. So if you have any questions, let me know. But those are the 4 that responded. The questions that were brought to my attention thus far were brought by Councilmember Cavanagh, and that was in regards to the conference room A and B that are mentioned in the proposal, the green room, community development conference room that seats 12, and the lobby. So to give you some background, we are replacing the main AV components that are in this closet that control everything in this room. There are a couple other rooms that those same components also serve, and that is this conference room, which is one that I forgot to mention just now, because that's on there as well. That one, the community development conference room across the hall and down a ways, 12. And then I think that's it. So those 2 rooms were included in it because if we rip out the guts of this system, those rooms cease to function. Their AV systems don't work, period. There is no hardware that we can bring to make them functional because the hardware is outdated and it's not sold any longer. So we felt it was important to maintain the functionality that's in the conference room for the council, as far as the TV, the projector, be able to see presentations, and the same thing that goes for the community development conference room. So we included those just so that we don't lose that level of service that we have in those currently. For conference rooms A and B, we heard from many of the people that we discussed the chambers with, and we heard that many people felt it would be valuable to have conference room A and B available as overflow for larger meeting events, so that people had a place to sit. When this room gets filled up, people tend to congregate in the lobby. Well, if we could have them congregate in A and B as well, they'll have a place to sit, be comfortable for those larger meetings that are more publicly, attended. So that's why that was included for conference room A and B. If we don't include it, then it obviously makes it really hard for us to get the audio and video over there, so people won't be able to do that. And then the lobby itself was included because obviously we have audio feeds out there right now. We have to make sure that we maintain that. And then the TV in the lobby also is used for agendas and things like that, so we need to make sure that that's addressed, and the TV is going out, so the TV ended up needing to be replaced as part of that. As far as the green room goes, that was included because that is where we house the streaming equipment. There is no other equipment but other than a new streaming device and a new Mac that will be used for video editing. So with that, I stand for questions, and if you'd like more information on any of the proposal, I'm happy to go over it in more detail, but also want to be respectful of your time.
Thank you, Dave. Council questions.
Madam Mayor,
Mr. Cavanagh.
maybe there's a question for Dave or JC or CJ about how often conference room A and B are used as overflow for council meetings. Does that happen? I can think of a couple of occasions, but I don't want to paint with broad brush strokes based on what I'm able to recall.
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Cavanagh, since I've been the clerk in the 2 short months I've been here, we haven't used that as overflow, so I will defer to JC.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, Councilmember Cavanagh, I would say maybe 3 to 4 times a year we've had big enough stuff in there that IT comes down and actually tunes in that TV so that the audio is in, or the video and audio are in there. That's probably about, I'd say maybe 3, possibly 4 times a year, if that.
Well, and that's for the overflow, but there is a lot of meetings that use the technology in that room that because of the capabilities over there, it's been a staff time issue.
And Madam Mayor, members of the council, Councilmember Cavanagh, one thing I neglected to mention that I also wanted to mention here is conference room A and B right now are standalone. They don't integrate with this system, but the system that is over there is having functionality problems. When we have to troubleshoot, it's a matter of power cycling the device and hoping it comes back up. There are issues in there. So while that's not part of this project addressing those issues, they kind of go hand in hand and they would be addressed as part of that. So.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, follow up then. Dave, maybe then just for my clarity, what rooms are tied to the system that we currently have that are required to stay connected to this new system? I guess to the point of if a conference room in community development is tied to this system and that's creating some unneeded cost burdens, does it make sense to have that be its own independent AV setup as opposed to being tied to this system for future problems?
Absolutely. And as part of this, we actually are putting it on its own standalone system for that conference room. The other rooms that tie in are the council conference room here, and then obviously the green room for just the streaming side of it. But Community Development 12 is the only one-off that kind of, it's like, well, that doesn't really make sense. Why is it in there in the first place? But we are separating it out so that we don't have that problem in the future. Now, if we bring Community Development or Conference Room A and B in, then we would obviously be bringing that into the system, and that could potentially bring up this type of issue again. But the design of the system and the, I guess, I'm trying to think of the word. It's the flexibility in the hardware means that if we lose a central component in here, they're still able to run.
Okay.
Dave, I thought the conference room A and B were tied into the council chambers for the overflow.
The TV is, and it's that small TV that's in there, but not the rest of the projectors or the sound system. So when they listen, it's actually over the TV speakers, and that's part of the reason why we thought it would be beneficial to have it on projector over the speakers rather than a little TV that everyone hopes they can see from anywhere in the room. So.
Madam Mayor.
Mr. Berg.
David, they're taking out all these nice TVs and stuff. What happens to them?
Per our disposal, I think it's a disposal policy, we have the option of including a contract that they take them and do with them what they will for disposal, and that's what we included in this agreement. So
they taken no credit back to us.
they included a credit. It's not a discount
Line
per se.
item?
It's not a line item on here, however. So.
So, Madam Mayor, maybe a comment if I may. The reason why I asked for us to pull this off is that, again, to my recollection, I couldn't find a copy of the minutes that when this project was brought to council's attention, it was to upgrade the infrastructure of this particular room to be able to aid the public in attending our meetings. And in going through the bid project, in my opinion, it had expanded far greatly than what we had discussed as a council. And I'd asked to be removed solely so this body could have the opportunity to discuss. And if the expansion of this project is what the council believes is necessary and warranted, then staff could go forth. But I felt it was important that we at least acknowledge the great expansion of the scope of this project from what was initially presented to us, rightfully so based on the requirements of the project. But I think it's important for us to know. Personally, I struggle that we're giving away perfectly good screens that we could utilize in our other departments. I can't think of a budget year that's went on that I haven't seen a request for a television or a projector of some kind for some department. I think that we can be frugal and utilize existing functional technology. And then quite frankly, I struggle with the fact that we're ripping out one system that has the potential to serve current needs to replace it with a brand new system that with the promise that it's going to meet all of our future needs. I would imagine that when this body agreed on the current system that we have, it was with the promises that it would meet our current and future needs, and it has fallen woefully short. So the only reason to bring this up was so that you as a council can have the opportunity to weigh in if you think this is the right direction, or if the scope of the project needs to be scaled back.
Ms. Mylum.
Microphone's on. No wonder you couldn't hear me.
We're going to fix that.
Yeah, right? It'll be all automatic. Now I'm trying to remember my question, Dave. So I guess one thing that just came up is we currently have the equipment for the planning department, but it's in here, and since we're taking it apart, but could we not move that equipment so that it would still have the functionality for that conference room, or does that have to be replaced?
Councilmember Milan. We could potentially move it in there. The space would be an issue, and then the fact that the hardware is already starting to fail and is not supportable would probably cause us to just be in the same boat in, a quicker time than what we would hope for. But that's not to say that's not a possibility. We would have to find space, first of all, because there's a lot more equipment in that room or in that rack right now than what they need. So, but it's unfortunately all part of the same system, so we can't just piecemeal it together.
Madam Mayor. We have a line item for $18,000 for travel. Can you elaborate on that, please?
I can, if I can get my device to respond. Hold on a minute. Do you have a response?
Yeah, it's a catch-all, it is.
Well, it is a catch-all, but it wasn't listed like this on their proposal. It had other equipment in there as well. So I was trying to find the original.
Oh, their proposal?
Because it's slightly different. I don't have it in front of me, but I'm trying to get it up. They didn't quantify it, but on the original proposal, it actually has more than just the travel and additionally cabling hardware, so I'll see if I can get that up. If you want.
I guess to elaborate my question, I think last week or whenever we discussed this recently, we're using a local company. So,
A local company. They're Salt Lake.
the guys in Boise.
No,
I
the discussion was the need to travel to Salt Lake City to see
Right.
the equipment to make sure that the functionality worked as envisioned
expected.
and as decided before they moved it up here. If there
Right.
were any needed changes, that they could do it while it was still
Right,
there.
and like I mentioned over email, they do have a local
I didn't
office,
get the email,
absolutely, but they are not a local company. I thought I had mentioned that at council meeting last week, but I apologize if I didn't.
You did
So-
mention Salt Lake, so that's what that $18,000
Yeah,
is.
and it does not cover just travel. It's not itemized on here. There was a slight error in how it is displayed on the contract. Let me see if I can get that up. Keith is going to pull it up, but maybe.
So maybe, JC, you can cover, I think when this was first originally discussed, it was about council chambers. It expanded when there was a desire to have a more interactive opportunity with workshops, like the budget workshop, that included this, that then affected the streaming and the camera angles. There was a desire to stream town halls that made it a portable need. And I think that after IT got the original permission from council to look at this, they went and talked with all the different entities on what the needs for this room and any associated rooms would be. They came and reported back. And sometimes I think I get my one-on-ones or my director meetings mixed up with the council meetings. But I believe that We've touched base with council at least once or twice after that, before we even move forward with the RFP. So can you give a little overview if I'm,
asking you to remember that. He's, Christy, gives you manage the whole project. Do you remember?
I can speak to it.
okay.
We did come here in, trying to think, April, and discussed it a couple times, but we did have the intention of keeping it on a little bit high level and not going into all the details, just because that could take hours. We had all that information when we came to council and discussed the budget request, but it seemed like that would make sense. If we had to touch those other rooms to keep that functionality, then we would do that. Now, what were additions were, hey, look, if we wanted to expand better capabilities in conference room A and B as far as having it available for overflow, the streaming, those things were things that we discussed in one-on-one meetings. And then I did find the answer to your question, Councilmember Milam. On the actual proposal, they have travel, additional cabling, and hardware and miscellaneous labor in there. So it doesn't mean it's all travel, but they didn't also give us an itemized thing saying this is travel expenses or not. But they are out of Salt Lake, so we expect there to be some travel expenses. And we also anticipate doing this entire room in 1 week. So they are going to be bringing more than one person up here for this installation. So I expect there is going to be some.
So that travel was not only their travel to bring the equipment up, it was the travel for the team to go down there? Is that, no?
We did not anticipate that in that cost. We figured we would take a couple city vehicles down for a day. So.
Madam Mayor, council members, I would like to add, in this is a line item breakdown essentially of the contract. The contract is a not to exceed fixed lump sum. So they could put $3 in there for travel or $3,000 or $30,000. We don't care. We're looking at the bottom line to get the job done. So it is a lump sum not to exceed contract. So it's sort of a moot point as far as it's a tool to use for negotiating. But that line item really isn't a telltale sign. It's really the bottom line, and that's how we evaluated cost, was bottom line. If you look on the evaluations, cost has a point system. We actually used a mathematical formula, so it wasn't just pulled out of the air. So the points assigned to cost was a formula that was utilized. They were much lower than the number 2 bidder by almost $100,000, I believe. But just to let you know, it's not like we're buying airline tickets for them. They've lumped it in with three other miscellaneous items, and it's really the bottom line dollar amount that matters.
Thank you.
There.
Mr. Byrd.
Keith, then the $299,000, was that the original RFP bid that we got up here?
It is correct, sir.
Okay, so, and that's where they were quite a bit lower than the second one?
Oh, okay. Excuse me, sir. Dave just reminded me, it was 272 originally. The
Okay, and
negotiated.
that's where they were quite a bit lower than everybody else?
Correct.
They're still lower.
And then everybody else had the chance to come back and add to their other, or we just worked this other out with them?
Correct. By statute, that is the way you have to evaluate with an RFP. You evaluate them, and you start with number 1, and that by law is the only way we can do that. We go with number 1. You try to negotiate a contract with them. So the scope and the final scope and the final payment is a negotiated sum. You're not allowed to go to the other and say, let's.
I don't disagree with that, but in the same token, you all of a sudden, you're 100,000, did you say, underneath the next bidder?
Correct, sir.
And
It was
and we
actually
add on all this stuff,
115,000.
and all of a sudden you're up there.
I didn't get that, sir. Sorry.
Well, when you start throwing this extras at it, they didn't have to bid against anybody, right?
No, it's an RFP. Correct.
Yeah, so they can make up for that 100,000 they left on the table before.
I'll let Dave answer that.
We did, as part of this in IT, we actually plugged the numbers back into Keith's scoring sheet, and they still came out with number 1 with the 299,000. So.
Well, yeah,
But
it went from
just as a side note.
299,000 to 400, almost 400,000.
To the next low bidder, not these folks. These folks were $279. It did go up about $20,000 total with the additional negotiated scope of work.
Right.
Madam Mayor.
Mr. Neary.
Madam Mayor, members of council, Councilmember Cavanagh asked the question about the equipment as part of the transaction. So we discussed it both in legal and with purchasing. It is in your policy, your purchasing policy on disposal, that you can include it. And the best thing I can liken it to is when you trade in a vehicle. You take a vehicle and you don't get a value of the vehicle. You take the vehicle to the dealer and say, if we give you this vehicle, how much will you sell me this other vehicle for? And that's part of the transaction, and that's why it's in your policy that way. So I don't know if there was a discussion about repurposing them, but from both the legal standpoint and policy, it's perfectly acceptable, because if you look at it the other way, if you can't repurpose these screens, it's very expensive to dispose of these types of equipment. You can only take them to the dump. Some you can or can't sell through auction, which it can be a very clunky process as well. So looking at the alternative methods of getting rid of equipment, this seemed the most logical from both a legal and policy standpoint. So,
Madam Mayor,
Ms. Mylum.
I don't look at this equipment as junk that would be hard to get rid of. I think of this as equipment that could either be sold or donated, or I have a really hard time with this part of it as well. And yes, when you buy a car, you're looking at the difference is what matters. But I still want to know what the sale price is and what they're giving me for my trade-in. And then I can make an informed decision whether or not I want to trade that car in or keep it and sell it to my neighbor for more. And
Staff probably did that.
so, but they don't know, because it's just part of it. And I would like that to be a line item. So I do have a really hard time with that. And
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
Councilwoman Mylum, typically on any type of an item, we don't just get to go sell it to our neighbor. We have to send it to auction, and you literally get pennies on the dollar at auction. And electronic equipment is even worse. So if we send it to auction, I'm sure we would get next to nothing for it, and some of what we would actually have to pay to get rid of. The items that are failing, we would have to pay to take them to the dump and get rid of them. I can, in the future, we can ask for a line item that says the trade-in value of that piece of equipment, and we'll take that note and make sure we do that in the future. We did not do that with this one. We just made sure it was clear to all proposers that this equipment would be given, and that's a typical question when we're getting rid of anything, even like at wastewater sometimes, or water. We're getting rid of some pipe or something, or a piece of equipment. They ask, do you want to keep it or do you want us to take it away? And typically we put that in the bid that they're to take it away, because it's more costly for us to get rid of.
Councilmember Mylum, just to highlight Keith's point on the auction process, we regularly will take some of the IT equipment that we dispose to auction. Usually it's higher end equipment, so servers and the like, and we range in the $10 to $100 per piece of $10,000 equipment. So,
You got zero on this.
Madam Mayor.
Ms. Mylum.
Well, and that's why I guess seeing it as a line item would be important, because are they charging us extra to take it from us? I mean, that's something we don't know too. This bid might be higher because of the trade-in equipment if they don't see it as valuable. And so, also repurposing it. I mean, those big, a lot of this stuff could be repurposed within the city, but I won't dwell on it any longer. For me, I have, as a business person, the way my mind works, I have a hard time with that, that's all.
And it sounds like this has been the practice, and
Yes.
everyone responded to the bid with that practice in mind. And certainly purchasing just heard the direction to see if there is value, or if they're charging us more for the disposal of the assets as well. So we can definitely do that. Any other questions from council? Okay. Thank you, Keith. Thank you, Dave.
Don't ask me.
Madam Mayor,
Mr. Byrd.
I move that we approve the proposal and agreement with Valcom Salt Lake City, LC, for the City of Meridian City Council Chambers Technology Replacement Project, not to exceed $299,632.93.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Mr. Clerk, will you call roll?
Councilmember Cavanagh.
No.
Councilmember Mylum.
Aye.
Councilmember Little Roberts.
Aye.
Councilmember Borton.
Aye.
Councilmember Byrd.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Thank you. Item 7A is public hearing, second reading on ordinance 16-1709. This is a public hearing. I will ask Mr. Clerk to please read this by title.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. City of Meridian Ordinance Number 16-1709, an ordinance amending Title 4, Chapter 1, Section 8B1, Meridian City Code, collection of solid waste and recyclable materials to change the collection at commercial premises to commence at 4 o'clock a.m. and providing an effective date.
Okay. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to provide testimony on this item? Okay, council.
Madam Mayor,
Mr. Byrd.
I move that we move this to the third reading on November 2nd, or 1st,
Second.
2016.
Second. Second or first?
No, this is odd. Do we want a motion for the third
we-
reading?
You don't need one.
You don't need one, you just go forward,
Just
but-
move it forward.
Oh, first.
Yeah. Okay, so this item will be placed on the November 1st for the third and final reading of ordinance 16-1709.
And the public hearing will be closed at that time.
Yes, and the public hearing will continue until that third reading. Okay. Item 7B, the applicant is not here available tonight. If council needs to have any questions answered, we can look at it at that time. I'll turn this over to Caleb.
Yeah, Madam Mayor, we do have an email from the applicant agreeing to the staff report and the conditions that are included therein, but like has been stated, they aren't here tonight. This was continued from your August 23rd meeting. They were trying to work with ACHD and a potential buyer on some changes to some of the original terms of the development agreement, but it's my understanding that that buyer is no longer on the scene. They would like to keep their preliminary plat, which is item 8B, alive, but have requested withdrawal of item 8C, which is the development agreement, and had some of the terms in that is what they were trying to negotiate or get some clarification from ACHD and MDC. But again, they would like to keep their 2008 preliminary plat alive that has 40 building lots, 2 common lots. This is the 4th time extension. Again, it was approved in 2008 originally. It's on 38 acres of land. If you're not comfortable approving it or have questions for the applicant, they request a November 22nd meeting. But again, they are in agreement with the staff report. And with that, I would stand for any questions on item 8B.
Madam Mayor.
Excuse me, 7B.
Madam Mayor.
Mr. Byrd.
Caleb, the staff is comfortable if we pass it now. I don't want
Absolutely.
to take it on if the rest of the council feels comfortable with it. I do.
4th time extension.
Is there anyone who would like to provide testimony on this item? Okay,
Madam Mayor,
Mr. Byrd.
I move we close the public hearing on H 2016-0008.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to close public hearing on 7B. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Madam Mayor, I move we approve H 2016-0008 and include staff comments and returned email from applicant.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve item 7B. Mr. Clerk, will you call roll?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councilmember Cavanagh.
Aye.
Councilmember Mylum.
Aye.
Councilmember Little Roberts.
Aye.
Councilmember Borton.
Aye.
Councilmember Byrd.
Aye.
All ayes, motion carried. Item 7C was requested to be withdrawn. It is a public hearing. I would need a motion from council to entertain that request.
Madam Mayor,
Mr. Byrd.
I move that we withdraw H 2016-0038 and also close the public hearing and withdraw the application.
Motion and a second to close the public hearing and accept the applicant's request to withdraw this item. Any discussion from council? Mr. Clerk, will you call roll?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councilmember Cavanagh.
Aye.
Councilmember Mylum.
Aye.
Councilmember Little Roberts.
Aye.
Councilmember Borton.
Aye.
Councilmember Byrd.
Aye.
Ayes. 7D is public hearing on H 2016-0116. I will open the public hearing with staff comments.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council. This too is a preliminary plat time extension request. The site consists of 75 acres of land, zone CG, and it's located at the northeast corner of I-84 and 10 Mile Roads. The preliminary plat for this project was approved by the City Council in 2012 and contains 50 commercial lots and 4 common lots. The applicant is requesting a 2-year time extension, although the applicant is here and probably doesn't anticipate or hope that it takes near that long to actually obtain signatures. They're in the process right now of obtaining signatures on the final plat, but came up a little bit short in that. The applicant is in agreement with the staff report, but again is in the audience if you have any questions or if they want to present anything to you. So with that, that is staff's report.
Thank you, Caleb. Does the applicant have any comment? This is a public hearing. Is there anyone who would like to make comment? I guess Caden is not interested in making comment on this application, right, Caden? Council, any questions for staff or the applicant?
Madam Mayor.
Mr. Kavner.
Caleb, this is the second time extension request?
Correct.
Okay, great. That's letting you know. Thanks.
Madam Mayor, Mike Wardle, Brighton Corporation, 12601 West Explorer Drive. While this is the second request, we already have received 7 weeks ago the first phase final plat approval from the council. We have a building under construction. Obviously, we will be moving forward. We just did not have time within this period to secure the signatures and get that plat recorded. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anything further from council?
Madam Mayor,
Mr. Byrd.
I move we close the public hearing on H 2016-0116.
Second.
A motion and a second to close the public hearing on item 7D. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All ayes.
Madam Mayor,
Mr. Byrd.
I move we approve H 2016-00116 time extension for Brighton Investments LLC and to include staff and applicant comments.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve H 2016-0116. Any discussion from council? Mr. Clerk, will you please call roll?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councilmember Cavanagh.
Aye.
Councilmember Mylum.
Aye.
Councilmember Little Roberts.
Aye.
Councilmember Borton.
Aye.
Councilmember Byrd.
Aye.
All ayes, motion carried. Item 8A is a report from Public Works. I'll start, I guess, introducing Kyle with our congratulations.
Madam Mayor, council members, I'd like to provide some feedback from Public Works on the Department of Water Resources decision regarding our petition to designate an area of drilling concern. I've come before council several times to update our efforts on this front and seek guidance, but I'd like to just give you a quick review for about 2 minutes and then tell you what happened and our feedback on it. This effort was born out of our realization sometime around 2009, so it's been a while that we were working on this, that the number one threat to our quality of our source water is the construction and improper abandonment of private wells, unsealed in the area contributing to our source water. Our objective in this effort was to address this threat by putting a mechanism in place to ensure that wells in a designated area were properly sealed, to ensure that natural protective layers like clay that separate water of different qualities are kept intact. The establishment of an area of drilling concern was just one tactic that we decided was our best tactic to use, so to be administered by IDWR. Another tactic that we considered for quite some time was to create our own well drilling ordinance, which we, in my opinion, rightly decided after consultation with council that that was probably not a good idea. It wasn't the way to go. IDWR has decided to employ yet another tactic, which is simply to enforce higher administrative standards in light of the scientific data that we provided in our report and our petition. So I was going to summarize what they decided, but I included in your packets their order on this subject. I don't know that all of you had time to read it. It was 12 pages, but if you skip to page 11, then you get to the actual decision they made. So I'd like to, if I could, just read the two paragraphs that are the most important in the whole order, which are the first, that Meridian's petition for designation of the West Ada area of drilling concern is denied. Formal designation of the West Ada area of drilling concern is premature. Additional data and evaluation of hydrogeologic conditions in the areas surrounding the proposed West Ada area of drilling concern is necessary to establish boundaries of a designated ADC. So, first paragraph, well, that doesn't make you feel very good. But you keep reading. Second paragraph makes you feel a little better. Consistent with the department's duties to protect public health and prevent waste or contamination of ground or surface water, effective November 1st, 2016, the department shall implement the following procedures and standards for well construction permits within the proposed West Ada area of drilling concern boundary, excluding the West Boise area of drilling concern as shown in attachment A. So essentially, we're denying the area of drilling concern, but within the area that you asked for an area of drilling concern, we are going to implement higher administrative standards. Among them, a lot of the things you asked for. So it's really a good thing. Just as a synopsis of the things that they have committed to doing within the area, which is the same area that we asked for in an area of drilling concern, they're going to eliminate start cards for new domestic wells. Start cards were a way that a driller could just put something in the mail and get started working. And the trouble with that is by the time the department knew that a well was being drilled, it was already done. So they had no opportunity to see what the driller intended to do and no opportunity to go inspect it. And new wells shall require permits to be submitted to show how the well is to be built. So with the elimination of start cards, the result is that you have to submit a permit application just like you would before you built a building. So the Department of Water Resources knows what's intended to be built, where and how deep, what the construction methods are going to be, how the well is going to be sealed. The next thing is that domestic wells should be limited to 200 feet in depth unless adequate water is not available. So that was a compromise of what we asked for. In our opinion, the kind of standards we are asking for should be implemented at all levels and all layers and everywhere. This was pretty unpalatable to a significant group of people. So I think it's a compromise that we feel good about because our city wells are, for the most part, not drilled into the shallow area. The other thing that the Department of Water Resources recognized is that below 200 feet, that's where you start encountering most of your uranium issues. And so it's better to keep those domestic wells out of there because one of our number one concerns, kind of outside of our city water, is that a lot of domestic well owners don't know that they're accessing water of quality that they wouldn't want if they knew what it was. So this measure tends to keep those domestic well owners out of that. Wells drilled deeper than 200 feet shall have a full-length seal of pumped grout, which is a fundamental issue that we asked for. Our specific request was that wells needed to be drilled using mud rotary techniques, which was, we feel, is the best way to put a full depth seal with grout in. It's certainly not the only way, but with the permitting requirement, the drilling contractor is going to have to submit to the Department of Water Resources how they intend to put a full depth seal in place on that well. The department has required plastic or stainless steel well screens for all wells, and the screened intervals should be limited to 20 feet, and that will result in the controlling the commingling, connecting aquifers of different chemistry through the well screens. And then abandonment of wells will be something that will have to be permitted. And when wells are abandoned, it's not good enough to just look at the well and pour a bunch of chips down it. You need to make sure that your abandonment techniques include a way in your construction to seal outside of the casing if you're intending to leave an old casing in place. So usually what we do is with our well abandonments is we perforate the old casing and then we pump grout in so it gets out into that annular space and seals it up. So that's another requirement. Those are the main requirements that the Department of Water Resources is going to put in place. And in summary, we're very encouraged by IDWR's action on this effort and their commitment to protect public health and water resources of the state, not only by enforcing higher administrative standards, but by continuing to seek additional data to further the cause. We've been really pleased with the cooperative and professional approach of IDWR and their staff, and we look forward to continuing a cooperative relationship as their administrative efforts are deployed, and they seek to get more data to perhaps someday establish an area of drilling concern that is, in fact, bigger than what we asked for. So with that, I will stand for any questions or comments.
Thank you, Kyle. And I think that the Department of Water Resources did find a compromise that respected the information that the city was able to prove through quite extensive studies and balancing that with the concerns of the well drillers. I think they did find a compromise. It does work for the area that you identified. And I think there was acknowledgement that indeed there needs to be a regional study of our watershed and how some of the studies that you were able to prove impacts the rest of the valley's water. So I think it's a positive outcome. And like I said, as I introduced you, congratulations. I think you and your team put a lot of time and effort in protecting the resources that I think sometimes we take for granted. And we appreciate your work.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Council, any questions, comments?
Madam Mayor?
Mr. Kavner.
Kyle, when the city launched in this endeavor, there was some notable and vocal opponents and people that raised some concerns about the area of drilling concern. What has their response been since Department of Water Resources findings and this compromise? We view it as a compromise. Do some of those people that were viewed as opponents to our proposal, do they view it as a compromise as well?
Madam Mayor, Councilman Kavner, I have to apologize. I have no feedback from the people that did not want the area drilling concern to be established. Certainly the organized, I wouldn't necessarily call them an opponent, but the Idaho Groundwater Association voiced an opinion that was opposed to establishing the area of drilling concern. However, they agreed with the science that was behind the area of drilling concern, and they just felt like it could be administered without the actual establishment. I think to some degree there was some concern just with the moniker of area of drilling concern. Some people feel like the intent of it is to delineate an area where there's been an industrial chemical spill. And certainly it's been used for that in the past. we felt like it was an appropriate method of protecting a place that hasn't had a chemical spill yet or has natural contaminants. And I did see Lynn Tamanaga of the Idaho Groundwater Association recently, and I didn't get much feedback. So I think for the most part the reasonable opponents are probably happy with the decision, but that's probably conjecture on my part.
Well, and I think it is conjecture to a certain degree, but when we held a meeting with some of the elected officials, the Department of Water Resources, and our staff and consultants, the conversation was a concern that this might supersede the legislative process, and there was some concern of using the area of drilling concern by the Department of Water Resources that overstepped lines of authority. But I think the overarching comments that I heard during that was not a question of the science that was used, but that if there was demonstrated concerns for the water viability, depending on how deep you drilled your well, that it should be looked at as a region, not as just this area in particular. And so there was acknowledgement in the findings that there is enough concern that these different drilling techniques are going to be required. And now it's going to be our job to put into place that we can monitor that those steps are indeed being administered. And have you talked as a team on how we are going to work with Department of Water Resources?
Madam Mayor, thanks for that question. Good point. And we have actually been doing what we need to continue to do to monitor the department's effectiveness in administering and implementing their decision here. We've really been doing that already in the absence of an area drilling concern or decision. The last 2 or 3 years since we decided we had to do this, we have been on our own monitoring water rights applications, and when a water rights application comes in our area of impact, we intercept it administratively. We look at the department's advertisement of that, and then we will discuss it with the owner of that application. And it's resulted in a lot of successful negotiations to have them drill their wells in the way we have requested them drilled. So we have access to the information that the water rights applied for. There's a well drillers an application, and we will be able to see that, and we'll be able to see what the department has done with that application. And we've certainly, through this effort, we've established some relationships with the Department of Water Resources staff that are going to administer also. So it should be better, much better than just finding out after the fact if they did what they said they were going to do. We're going to be in contact with them on a regular basis.
Great.
Thank you.
Okay.
Anything further from council?
Thank you.
And again, congratulations to the entire team, to Ed, to Charlie, and
Thank you.
appreciate it.
I'll extend that to them.
Okay. Item 8B is under our legal department.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council. I'm pleased to have on the agenda tonight is a ratified agreement with the Meridian Firefighters Union Locals 4627. We have been in negotiations since May, a number of sessions to reach this final conclusion. We made them an offer that is encompassed in the agreement that we have previously discussed. I would like to thank the team, the city's team, for the time and effort. There was a lot of work put in by Deputy Chief Jones, by Councilmember Borton, Crystal Ritchie, our HR manager, and Todd Lavoie, our CFO. In addition, Christina Barney, our benefits generalist, provided a great deal of information in reaching this conclusion. What you have, the contract that was approved last night, has some cosmetic changes to some of the language that we previously discussed. The primary changes are the compensation amounts for the next 2 years for the union. There's a 3% increase for this fiscal year beginning in the next pay period, and also a 1% in 2007, beginning October of 2017. Additionally, the union will move to a separate medical plan beginning in January of 2018 with the Northwest Firefighter Trust. That was a issue of great concern to the firefighters. It had some different things that we don't have the ability to offer in the same fashion for all the general employees. It's very firefighter focused. It's with a trust that only represents firefighters. And so after looking at both the benefit plan as well as the costs of offering that benefit, it felt that was a reasonable way that we could make that, allow that to occur. And then finally, they will stay in the city's plan for the next year with the same benefit package that the city has, including the wellness component that we have. They've also agreed to remain in the wellness plan when they move to the Northwest Firefighter Trust, that they still have that wellness incentive to participate in that for some of the discounts or incentives that we provide for that. And the differential is the cost of the dependent premium cost. And so that was the only differential between those two. So primarily, again, I think the biggest thing in that, the firefighters, when I spoke with their lead negotiator, Christian Forby, they were very appreciative. I thought they might be here tonight, but that's fine. They were very appreciative of the city's consideration, this council's consideration of allowing that Northwest Firefighter Trust Plan. That really was a key component to them. It is something we have discussed for a number of years, and this is something we could make fit at this particular time. So if the council's of the mindset to approve it, we'd appreciate that approval tonight, and then we can move forward and finalize all of that with finance and everything so that the next paychecks, everything gets corrected and put into place.
Thank you, Bill. Any comments?
Madam Mayor,
Mr. Kavner.
I just would like to reiterate what Bill said. I was able to attend a few of these meetings as a member of the viewing public, and to echo Bill's points, thanks to Bill Neri and Crystal and Christina Barney and Todd and Joe Borton, Councilman Borton, as our council liaison. I felt that they,
Jones.
huh? Yes.
Dave Jones.
Angie, yes, thank you, Mr. Jones. Appreciate it. Sorry, I didn't see you there. Really taking to account that these are our employees and wanting to work to come to an agreement that's best for the city and best for our employees. So thanks to everyone and their due diligence on this issue. It's appreciated.
Thank you. Yep. Our thanks for the negotiating team and Councilmember Borton for representing the elected officials, and certainly Mr. Neri, as the lead negotiator. I think you showed patience, and I appreciated you working through the issues as they were brought forward.
About 99% of the time, ma'am.
As best we
The patience
could
part.
hope,
Okay.
right? Okay. Council, in front of you is the agreement. It does need a motion to ratify.
Madam Mayor,
Mr. Borton.
I would move that we approve the collective labor agreement between the City of Meridian and the Meridian Firefighters Local 4627.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve item 8B. Any discussion? Okay, Mr. Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councilmember Cavanagh.
Aye.
Councilmember Mylum.
Aye.
Councilmember Little Roberts.
Aye.
Councilmember Borton.
Aye.
Councilmember Byrd.
Aye.
Ayes, motion carried. Item 9 is our, are there any items for future agendas?
These are.
Council, I do have some upcoming events. Just a reminder that tomorrow morning at 7 a.m., your leadership team is cooking up some pancakes and sausage and something else. And we would love to have you come and cook beside us. It is a United Way breakfast as a fun way to raise money for United Way campaign to reach our goals. So please join us anytime between 7 and 9, and we'll throw a napkin on you, an apron, and hope to see you there. Town hall meeting tomorrow night at 6:30 at Compass Charter School on Cherry Lane near 10 Mile. Trunk or treat is Thursday.
Holy smokes.
It is a real treat seeing all the kids in their Halloween outfits going trunk to trunk, and I think we have over 90 trunks.
Holy cow.
And we'll have a couple of food trucks as well, so dinner is not just candy. And we
Wow.
appreciate Steve and his staff and the Mayor's Youth Advisory Council for putting this on. It looks like it's going to be another great success. And then on Saturday is the Anti-Drug Coalition's reality party, and they're going to have 4 different showings. So if you would like to come and check them out, it's on the hour starting at 1 o'clock. There's also a 2, a 3, and a 4 o'clock showing. They're about 20 minutes, and it's at Forward Movement Training Center that you take the tour from there. And you're kind of on that catwalk looking down and seeing the reality parties. It is for parents, put on. Some of the actors are MIAC members and other teenagers lending their talents. So just one other thing is I'll be conducting the Parks Commission interviews this week and hope to bring back recommendations to council on your November 1st meeting. Also, we do have an opening on our Planning and Zoning Commission, so if you have anyone who might have an interest, please help let people know that this opening is available. We're also trying to fill a Solid Waste Advisory Council commission seat and HP.
Wow.
So,
That's a lot.
Madam Mayor,
Ms. Mylum.
on Saturday is also the Howlo Woof Pooch Parade costume contest at Story Park.
Yes, for all the 4-legged furry friends.
Fur babies.
Dress them warmly, and it will be a howling good time, right? Ho, ho, ho. If there's nothing further, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
In favor, say aye.
Aye.
Ayes.